All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Dr. Emmanuel Johnson, and I'm excited today to be talking to you about artificial intelligence. And I hope that we can have an interactive discussion about AI and answer whatever questions you may have. I know nowadays we see quite a bit of artificial intelligence talked about in TV shows, on the news, in our day-to-day lives. And so, what I really want to do today is kind of, help break that down and answer whatever questions you all may have. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. There we go. All right. So to share a little bit about myself, as I stated, my name is Dr. Emmanuel Johnson. I finished my PhD here at USC in computer science with a focus on artificial intelligence. And a lot of my work's really focused on how do we use automated systems and AI technology to help train people. But in doing so, I've worked on a number of different AI related projects in robotics as well as other spaces. So just to give you a bit of some visual on what I've done in the past, a few years ago, I spent a summer in Japan working on this robot to the right. Yes, I'm always get asked this question: how do I feel about working with a robot that looks a little creepy? To me, yes, I understand where people come from when they think this looks creepy, and it was really fun working on this robot. And so what I really did, what my job was during the summer was to get this robot to talk. And I'll speak a little bit more about what that means. So let me play this video. In this video, you'll see me having a conversation with this robot. Hello, robot.
Please, Emmanuel, call me Enda.
Okay, Endo, how are you?
I am doing well. Thanks for asking. How was your stay in Japan?
I've enjoyed Japan.
That's good.
You should visit the United States sometime.
I would love to visit the United States.
Okay, let's see what we can do.
That sounds great. I have to go now, but let's talk soon.
Okay, great.
All right. Have a good day.
You do the same. So in this video, we're really just having a general conversation with the robot. And so these are good for if you want a robot to act as some device or some person that interacts with a human. And this could be used in the teaching settings. You think about some of the devices we have now that we talk to, so on and so forth. But not only have I worked on robotic systems that interact with humans in a very natural way, I've also worked on more mechanical systems that are built for a specific task. And so the next video I want to show you is some work I did during my time at NASA. And so one of the challenges that NASA has is when you send people to space, it takes so long to communicate with them, right? So if you were to, try to send some communication, it takes a few minutes to get to them. Now, that's problematic if you're trying to control a robot. So imagine if we send a robot to space and we want this robot to complete a certain task, right? So let's say we have a robot on the International Space Station, or we have a robot on a spacecraft, and we want this robot to be able to, maybe move things around. If we are sending individual commands, it's going to take about 4 or 5 minutes for the command to reach. And so think about trying to control a robotic arm, right? You don't want to just send one command and tell the robot to move to the left or move to the right, because it's going to take so long for you to, accomplish the task. What you really want to do is be able to tell the robot, similar to how you do with a person, you want to tell the robot a specific task you want it to complete, and then have the robot figure it out. So for example, think about, if you're at home and somebody asks you to get the remote for them, right? What you do is you get up, you look around, you find the remote, you walk towards it, you pick it up, you know, um, and then you walk back to this person and you hand it over to them. And each of those are unique steps that you perform to accomplish this goal. And so it's a similar thing we want to do with robots. So in the video I'm going to show, our job was to create an interface that allowed you to control a robot on the International Space Station. And the idea is that rather than telling it to move, you know, move to the left 5 centimeters, or move to the right 5 centimeters, or move up or down, what we do is we just give the robot a general command. So for example, we may say, hey, I need you to grab this thing and open it. And the robot just knows how to do that. So let's go ahead and watch this video. In this case, we're going to have this robot open this box. And so let's see how it goes. So what you saw in that video was, we had the robot perform a number of different actions. So we had it open up the box, grab an item from the box, and then also place that item on the table. Now, I want to show something really quickly in this video. And so if you look sort of towards the end of the video, you see that as the robot is placing this item on the ground, it initially starts with the item sort of pointing it out. And so it realizes that, it has to reorient its hands to be able to place the robot, the item on the table. And so this really highlights the point that I was making earlier, where the robot intuitively knows how to place items based on what we're trying to get done. And so a lot of this is accomplished using technology, what we commonly call as artificial intelligence. But what exactly is artificial intelligence? I think nowadays there's quite a lot in the news and the press talking about this. And generally speaking, artificial intelligence is the field of computer science that's interested in creating machines that are smart and are able to accomplish tasks similar to how humans would. And the way I like to think about this is there's a number of fields that make up this space of artificial intelligence. And I'll go into what each of these fields are and why they're important. So the main sort of spaces of artificial intelligence are, one, machine learning. And machine learning is really concerned with how do we get machines. As the name says, how do we get machines to learn? There's vision that's interested in how do you get computers and machines to see. There's speech similar to us. How do we get machines to communicate ideas or communicate things to us? Natural language processing, which is really concerned with how do we get machines to understand what humans say. Expert systems, so think about like your recommendations or systems that know something about you. And last but not least, robotics. So you think traditional robots and how that works. So let's dive into these a little bit more, and we'll kind of go backwards. So the first thing I wanted to talk about robots. In the robotic space, artificial intelligence is really interested in how can we create more these physical devices that exhibit different human behavior to accomplish a task. So when we think about it, many of the things we do without even thinking, right? So if I ask you to accomplish a task, you don't really think twice about it. The movement of your hand, your ability to recognize different items in a scene, or even your ability to just think and come up with your own ideas. But when you start thinking about how do you get machines to do that, we realize this stuff is really complicated. And so the field of robotics is very much concerned with creating these physical robots that behave very similar to how humans do. And so AI really creates the brains of these robots so they can perform different tasks. And so you can have robots similar to the ones you see on the right and left, which are more human-like. You can have robots that help assemble cars. You have robots that are built to help take care of the elderly. And you even have robots now in different parts of the world that are able to take your order in a number of different things. And so one of the goals of robotics is to really take away many of those jobs that we really hate doing. So for example, if you think about vacuuming, right? If you don't like vacuuming, you can buy a Roomba. A Roomba would vacuum your living room as well as your kitchen for you, or wherever in your house you need to vacuum. And so that's how I want you to think about robots and what they're trying to do. The other space of artificial intelligence I want to talk about is natural language understanding and speech recognition. So I'm sure many of you have either have one of these devices or have seen one of these. This is the Amazon Alexa. And so through Amazon Alexa allows us to ask a number of different questions to this device. We can, know what the weather is. We can play music. We can shop online. We can do a number of things. And the reason why we're able to communicate with this is that Alexa has a feature called, or it has a natural language understanding component. So it is able to understand human speech. Now, we sometimes take this for granted because from an early age, we've been able to understand each other. But think about it like this. If you went to another country where they spoke a language different from yours, you realize that, wow, I really don't know how to communicate with this person. And you start to see just how difficult it is to acquire different language skills. So think about trying to get a robot or a machine to do that. And so this field of speech recognition and natural language understanding is really about how do we get robots to speak and understand what humans say. The next field of artificial intelligence I'm going to talk about is the vision. So computer vision really helps these both robots and just general AI systems see the world. And so there's a lot of work in helping a number of different devices understand the world around them. So this example that I have here is of a self-driving car. I know specifically Tesla and other automotive companies have been really interested in how do you create cars that drive yourself. Now, I think that is a great idea. I think all of us would be very, I think a lot of people would be interested in a car that can drive itself, so you don't have to worry about driving, or if you're in traffic in LA traffic, you can, instead of focusing on driving, you can do other things. And so to enable cars and other devices to understand the world, computer vision is really cares about how do you process video feed and be able to detect different things. So if you look in this image, you see there's a number of things that this computer vision algorithm is able to detect correctly. So on the left, we see that it is able to detect cars coming towards them. We can detect people as they walk across the street, and we can also detect bicycles. And so this really allows the AI to understand the world around it and to better navigate that world. And last but not least, I think all of us in some way, shape, or form interact with what we consider as expert system. So these are systems that take your input and is able to recommend or guide you to a certain content. So let's think about Google, for example. When you want to find something on the internet, you type in the name of that thing on Google, and Google gives you a list of suggestions that it think best fits what you need, right? Or think about going on Netflix to watch a movie. There's all of these movies that Netflix recommends based off of other movies you watch and things that you like. And so what these systems are really doing, these are what we often call a recommendation system, or even beyond those, there are expert systems. So they're able to understand what our preferences are and then adapt or recommend content based on that. Think about Spotify or Apple Music and its ability to recommend different songs to you. And so, excuse me, that's generally what artificial intelligence is this idea that we can use computer programs to understand the world around us and get computers to behave similarly as we would. Now, you may be wondering, well, why is that even important? Why do we want machines to be able to do this? Well, one of the main reasons we want this to occur is that, one, there are many places in which we don't have enough human beings to accomplish a goal, right? So one example is you think about the holiday season. There's so many people placing orders, and we all want our items to reach us on time. And so companies like Amazon utilize artificial intelligence to build systems that are able to do things that humans can do. And by allowing these systems to assist humans, they're able to get work done much quicker than if the humans were doing it on their own. And so what artificial intelligence allows us to do is scale up what humans are able to do. And in addition to that, these systems are also able to give us a more personalized experience. So if you think about your movies, for example, maybe 10, 20 years ago, typically, if you were watching TV, you really just kind of watch whatever was on. If you had a list of movies, you watched that there were ratings and different things that critics did, but you didn't really have that curated experience that people have now. And so AI is really good in helping us get those very personalized experiences and get more of the things that we want. And so that's a general overview of what artificial intelligence is. And I'm now going to open it up to see first if you all have any questions and open up the discussion.
So since David, you are our only high school student here, feel free. This is a one-on-one. Tap into Dr. Johnson's knowledge, any questions that you have about anything, feel free. So if you can either unmute yourself or you can type in the chat, whatever you feel comfortable, David.
Sorry, I'm getting questions from students, so give me a second.
No worries.
One of my students wants to know if we're gonna have robots in the future that are going to do other people's jobs.
I think in the future we're gonna have robots that do jobs, but I think jobs are going to change, right? So if you think about nowadays, we have smartphones and all of these apps that allow us to, access information. So let's say, for example, DoorDash, right? These apps allow us to place orders, and we're able to, essentially get food delivered to us instantaneously. Prior to that, you used to have these directories and different things that you can use to place orders. And so, what I think now, yes, to your question, yes, we're going to have AI that does jobs, but a lot of the jobs I think AI is going to do are things that people really don't want to do, or things that could be dangerous for people. But in replacing those jobs, I think AI is going to give us better, or not better, but is going to give us other jobs that we can do that may not be as draining or as taxing on our bodies.
Thank you.
And I'm pretty sure your class might have more questions. And can I ask you, David, how many students do you have in your class?
About 30.
30. Do
Okay.
they have any other questions about AI? I mean, think about our Mars rovers. Think about, cars. Think about hopefully automated flying cars that we might have vehicles. So
Yeah.
I
And I have
do
a question for the
on,
class.
on what you guys think is gonna happen with things like Tesla, when they start having to decide in an accident situation, do we kill one versus more?
Right, right. And so what I think that's always a really interesting example to think of, right? And I think in those, I think we're not at the point where AI can make those kind of decisions. And I think in the future, as we build self-driving cars to navigate the road, the aim is to have technology that's strong enough where you don't have to worry about your machine, veering off path and having to make the decision of whether or not to kill one person versus the other. So if we think about airplanes or trains, for example, right? Like these are technologies that in many sense have their own flaws, but oftentimes they're not making those. A train conductor or a pilot aren't making those decisions because they have strong redundant systems in place to handle various use cases. So I think, yes, we're going to have more advanced AI that's going to have to decide how best to keep us safe. But I think the notion of, those specific scenario, I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to build machines that can avoid having to, kill one person at the expense of another.
Thank you. Another one I just posted in from another student in the chat.
Okay. And I have a question for you for your class. What do you all think about AI? Are you excited about it? Are you nervous? Like, what comes to your mind when you think about artificial intelligence?
We have at least one student that's worried about them taking over the world.
Okay, well, why are you worried about them taking over the world? Why do you think they're going to take over the world?
They might go rogue.
They might go
Wow.
rogue.
Why would they go rogue?
They might become self-aware.
Self-aware.
Well, I think if you're the one helping to build it, I think we might be good.
Anybody else have questions? Yes.
Okay, so for example, people are already doing dangerous jobs because they don't have the money to do it. So if AI is taking over those jobs, and that just means more people are going to get not getting enough money.
There will be more people out of certain jobs, yes.
I got a question.
If AI is running robots that will do, I don't know, picking fields, for instance. Then anybody that has those jobs would have to do something else, yes.
Yes, but let's say for example, they don't have think necessary to get another job, which is like, let's say education, et cetera? Because most of the AI is gonna take
So,
over.
so they want to know what we're going to do with the people who lose their jobs. How are we going to find them or give them the necessary skills to do something else?
Great question. So let me give you a concrete example. I think what we're going to do is retrain them for the new jobs that are necessary, right? So let's think about taxi cab drivers, or matter of fact, let's look at mechanics, right? If you have more self-driving cars, that means less people are driving, and that means that rather than mechanics who are working on traditional cars, you're going to have more mechanics working on self-driving cars. Or even when we look at the scenario of replacing, robots in manufacturing jobs, you still need people to watch those robots. You need people to repair the robots. You need people to make sure the robot's still running good, right? And you need people like myself to program the robot. So in many ways, those people who've been working those jobs have years of experience doing this stuff. And so we're going to need them more so than anything else to help build the robots that are going to do those jobs for them. So it's not that people are just going to, lose their job and be left on the side. I think we're going to find ways to retrain them so that they're able to perform the jobs of the future, right? Like if you think about banks nowadays, most banks have ATMs. At some point, there were much more bank tellers than before, but the jobs went from those who were bank tellers, transacting to now people who repair ATMs and other automated systems like that. So I think that's a natural thing that's going to happen. And so we're going to need more people like you all to build those robots and to make sure that the people who jobs are going to be replaced do have the skill sets to work on robots.
Thank you.
And I think, okay.
So I assume the robots take a decent amount to produce and maintain. At what point for like a small company, is it just better to hire people than spend the money on a robot?
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, I don't think robots are going to be able to do everything humans do anytime soon. And so I think there's a lot of these higher level, more creative jobs that are going to require more human intervention. So when you think about things like cleaning, you think about things where you're doing the same repetitive task over and over. Those are things that we're going to need that robots are going to do very well. But when you think about more creative tasks like writing books, producing movies, and all of these things that require us to really think and put ideas and things together, I think robots aren't going to be as good. And in those cases, that's where the humans are going to be it's going to be much better to have a human than a machine. And quite a number of cases have shown us that robots and AI systems are nowhere near where they need to be. And so we still need humans. And I think one question that came in was, do we currently have automated cars that don't need human assistance? We currently do not. And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But here's one thing that's really interesting. Most of the cars now have a lot of these sensors on them that come out of AI research. So now you have like cars that can detect how close you got to somebody as you're driving. You have cars that will slow down if you're in cruise control and you're getting too close to people. And I think for this foreseeable future, I think that's going to be the next progression, where we take all this sensors that we've developed for cars to understand the world, and we use those to make the driving experiences more safe. And that's really the whole goal of self-driving cars. If you look at many of the accidents that happen today related to cars, they're usually caused by human errors. Maybe somebody's texting and not paying attention. Somebody fell asleep behind the wheel. And so I look at self-driving cars as a way for us to eliminate that, because if we have machines that aren't going to fall asleep, they're not going to be distracted, and they understand how the world around them is, then we can ensure that there's going to be a reduction in the number of car accidents that happen. And I think that's what, to me, at least, gets me excited about where we're going with self-driving cars.
There is another question. Can AI make another AI? So can artificial intelligence eventually, so this is whole fear about robots taking over the world. Can AI make another AI?
I think that's the short answer is no. I think there's what I want you all to realize, there's quite a lot of hype around this field, and some of that stuff is just really good marketing by companies. And so in many cases, we're not there yet. 100 years from now, 200 years from now, I'm not sure, but I don't see AI making another AI in the sense of the way people think about it, where you have this sentient being that's now producing another human being, or another machine. But it's kind of like when you think about an assembly line, for example, right? You have machines that make cars, and a car is another machine. So in some sense, you do have a machine making another machine, but that doesn't get us nervous. We're not scared. You think about your microwave, your refrigerator, your computers. These are all machines making other machines. But the way these things work is somebody has to program the machine to determine what is going to make. And I think a similar thing is going to happen. But this notion of a machine when people think about this, they think about a machine that looks like a human and is able to sit down and build another robot from scratch. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
So, Mr. Condiff, any other questions from your class?
Doesn't look like it. No one's
Okay.
raising their hands.
So maybe, I don't know if students are interested in the Mars rovers. I think the AI is pretty, has evolved over the time. You're talking about Opportunity and Spirit that was launched, decades ago, and then now you have Perseverance. So I would imagine the AI on the new rover is very different than the AI on the other rovers. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that AI tries to do is learn from the data that we've collected. So as NASA has built these different rovers, we've been able to gather information about Mars as well as the moon. And then so we're able to then update our technology based on that. And then also, if you think about it, in the last 10 to 20 years, both the processing power on our computers as well as the camera capacity and all of these other things have also improved. For example, if you think about the early Apollo missions, the amount of processing power that some of those had were essentially the equivalent of, or even less than what we have on our phone today. But as technology has improved, we've also been able to improve the overall technology that we use. And so newer generation of rovers definitely have better cameras. We're able to incorporate some of the knowledge we learned by deploying them in different areas. And so that allows us to just build better and more intelligent systems. I would say first and foremost, thank you all for attending. And one of the ways I want you all to look at AI isn't this thing that's going to build itself. And AI is something that we all as a society are going to help contribute to. So you all have just as much stake and just as much opportunity to help build this, because we're still at the early stages. So the way I want you all to think about this is not, hey, how is how do we stop these robots from becoming too smart, but really, how do I get involved to make sure that the AI is able to be beneficial to society? Because similar to you all, when I was in high school, I didn't really know much about artificial intelligence, and I didn't really know there, frankly, was a path to building these type of things. And so as I've gotten into the field, I realized that, AI isn't something I need to be afraid of, because if I wanted to be to be used for the right purpose, I can study this and I can get involved in helping to ensure that AI does contribute to societal good. And so I encourage each and every one of you to keep exploring, and I hope to see some of you building those rovers to go to Mars, or building other AI systems that, you know, all of us can use for our benefit.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Mr.